How's it going?
All right, guys. Welcome to what is this, episode 6?
Mm-hmm.
Episode 6 of the Physically Offensive podcast. I got my co host, Brian Johnson, and our coach, Phil Viz, on today. So, we're going to talk about a pretty sensitive subject. It's about managing your health, seeing stuff that is coming that you may have a genetic predisposition for, and you need to be careful of, and then also the coaching side of it, taking cycles that you may know aren't healthy for you, or you may not know, and how to mitigate side effects, watch what to watch for, stuff like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the deaths in bodybuilding. So let's kind of get into it. This is a really heavy one. So friends of all of ours have died in bodybuilding. So it's going to be kind of a tough subject to broach, but we think it's important to spread education because this can be obviously a reality for some athletes that maybe aren't careful or maybe have predispositions and just ignore them. So, but yeah, welcome to the Physically Offensive podcast. I guess this is Phil's second time, but Brian had him on already once when they were in Tampa together. So
Yeah, now I have my little co-host here because if I put her down, she's going to start screaming and yipping, and we won't be able to do this because she always has to be glued to my hip. So she's going to
so
be here
Phil
with
got,
me. You can see her
Phil got
chewing
real
on me.
excited about. He had been looking for a wiener dog for a minute, but after he came and stayed with me for a month, he like literally right away he like went on the hunt for getting one. I have three wiener dogs, of course, so
Yeah,
he got her like I think you put the deposit on her like probably less than 4 weeks after you went home. So
I got lucky. I was looking for one like her for over a year. I even offered a free year of coaching if anybody could find her, and then I said I could give you 2 years if you find one with blue eyes, and she has like blue gray eyes, and
yeah,
nobody could find her because her color pattern is extremely rare.
yes,
There's only
for
like
that
four
grade,
breeders that make her
that,
color pattern like in its entirety. Usually there's like a lot of brown,
yeah.
but she's just completely blue dapple with gray eyes, and she's a good girl. Ready?
Well, um, so we just had a recent passing in bodybuilding. Dwayne Quamina, I don't know how to say his last name specifically. I had a little bit of experience with Dwayne myself. When I owned Iron Rebel, he did some content creation for us. I had a good relationship with him. He was a content creator and a great bodybuilder. So, this kind of came as a shock, obviously, to everybody. But let's get into maybe what he passed from, what we may think he passed from. I'm not sure if it's like really been released yet, but what have you heard, I guess, about this so far?
Well, we from what we're being told anyway. I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken to anybody that's like directly in the know, but we heard that it was heart related. He made a video, a story, like days prior, saying that he had shortness of breath, he was coughing, he was having a hard time. Now, I actually was helping him pose in the gym in Atlanta. Because he was working out, we were hanging out. I
That was
fixed
just
some
maybe
videos.
4 or 5 days before his passing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and he was really out of breath. But I thought it was from the workout. Like I didn't put two and two together that his heart was all messed up because usually he's a pretty smart guy. And you
To
know,
me, to me, it seemed like he may have had a cold or a virus. Did it seem like he had a virus? And maybe I'm thinking maybe it was pneumonia. He was so short of breath because he had some sort of like walking pneumonia. And then, pneumonia is like one of those things that's like, it's deadly. Like if you don't get on antibiotics and chill and like recover from it, like fully, you can just, I mean, anyone, like bodybuilder, child, old people frequently die from pneumonia. So that's kind of what I was like thinking it looked like, but I guess maybe some of the symptoms of shortness of breath come from heart failure as well. Yes.
it does come from heart failure. He should have gotten more extensively checked, honestly. We see that all the time. And there's a reason why. When you go to the hospital, if they tell you no, or we're not doing this and that, and you say, oh, but my chest feels tight, they're gonna run every test they can think of
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to make sure, because there's probably been a million instances where they're like, oh shit, like we just saved this person's life because they said they had a little chest pain and we found something, and something was about to happen, and they really didn't run much. He went to I think he went to a nurse practitioner,
Yeah. Well,
and
that's why
she
I
gave
thought
him antibiotics and sent him on his way.
that's what exactly what you just said is why I thought that it might be pneumonia, because he had really stuffy on that reel that he had posted, and then he went in and he got antibiotics. So that led me to believe upper respiratory infection, which would be pneumonia. So that's specifically the antibiotics and how he sounded and looked real stuffed up. Wasn't breathing through his nose is what made me think pneumonia was.
That could also Those are also symptoms of congestive heart failure, right?
Okay, so
So
it may have been misdiagnosed. Then you're thinking.
this is why it's important to extensively check whenever something like that happens, because you don't know, and it could be really, really serious. Worst case scenario, they don't find it. Actually, it was weird because Roxy's breeder felt like she had a little tightness in her chest, right? And she got checked and she was like perfectly fine. She's like, why would they run all those tests on me? I'm like, because every time when people come in there, 9 times out of 10, they're going to find something that's like really bad. So like they're never going to risk like just downplaying it and saying, hey, go on your way. No, if you say I tighten my chest, they're going to check. Shortness of breath, coughing, they're going to check to be sure, because they've probably saved hundreds of lives of people that have come in and said, oh, I just don't feel well, I'm a little tight. And they're like, oh shit, like we got to get you on the operating table.
Yeah, well, they always put that stethoscope on your chest and they listen. And I'm guessing they're probably listening for fluid in the lungs, because that's like a very obviously, like I just said, deadly thing right off the bat. So let's go down the thought path that maybe it wasn't pneumonia or infection related. If it was just heart failure, what would maybe be leading to that coming off of a show?
I mean, coming off of a show, you've got diuretic use, you've dried out, you've shifted your electrolyte balance. Your body is doing all kinds of different things. Aldosterone levels probably high post show, causing water retention, higher blood pressure, which is really not good if you have congestive heart failure, right? So like he was already reaching the point when I saw him where he was peaking. It was a Thursday. He told me which diuretics that he would be using, so I'm pretty sure he used diuretics. I don't know for sure if they did, but he told me they were going to be. It didn't seem excessive, but anytime we use diuretics, you're going to have a rebound effect. Then he jumped on a plane, pressure's changing.
Well, there can be a lot of retention. There can be a lot of extenuating circumstances with diuretics. It's not just the diuretic. It could be what you eat. Is it high in potassium? Is it low in potassium? Is it high in sodium? Is it low in sodium? How much water are you taking in? How dehydrated are you? All of these are major factors to if you could die, literally die from coming off of a show. And exactly what you said, flying, massive water retention, that puts a lot of load on the heart, could create a environment for congestive heart failure. So there's a lot a lot of risks to know about bodybuilding other than just, kind of the apparent ones. Like I just went over eating and drinking. You think like, oh, that's so innocuous, but it really could, depending on what it is, specifically, it could kill you. Like if you had, I remember the story about Mobo Benaziz, I think it was, I don't know how to pronounce his name specifically, but Benaziza, yeah. Milos said that he was taking a potassium-sparing diuretic, and then he was carbing up on dates with just high in potassium, and that's ultimately what probably led to his, him passing was hyperkalemia, just too much potassium, and your heart will stop. That's how they kill you with lethal injection. They inject you with potassium, I think it's cyanide, but potassium, and they just literally stop your heart because of too much potassium. So you could do that through a diuretic use and through eating. Typically, if you're just eating without a diuretic, you probably aren't going to cause that. But
post-show, if you're already having heart problems post-show, it's like the perfect time to cause a disaster. Because you're having super compensatory effects. Your electrolytes are shifting. Everything is trying to rebalance. Your hormones are off. You're in a very sodium retentive state at that point. Blood pressure's going up. Kidneys under stress. Depending on if you ate good or bad post-show. Now, Dwayne was known to like eat bad. Yeah. He would be cheating on his diet a lot, and then his coach would like diet him really hard at the end to get him in shape. So post-show, who knows what he ate? Like, I don't know that either, or just speculating here. But like, it's
Yeah,
just the perfect storm for bad things to happen.
I misspoke a little bit. I said you probably aren't going to get that from eating, but absolutely after a show when you do not have an off switch on your hunger, you could get into a position where you are creating an issue like that because
And you
you
have
are
to consider his emotional drive. I mean, this was like third show in a row, I want to say. And he took a long time off and he came back
mm,
twice as hungry. So that horse blinder effect, was he really considering his health a lot in this? Or was he just too excited to get back to the top? Like he immediately was comparing himself to Keon and like, oh, I'm going to beat this guy. So he was going to do everything under the sun to get there without considering health and genetic potential.
yeah,
I mean,
tunnel
look, in
vision.
the past, he's beaten Sean Clarita in the past,
Mm-hmm.
So like he's done very well. He's
So
a phenomenal competitor. So like, I don't think that too much was out of reach for him, but like he just came back and like we don't know the circumstance that he was in. And a lot of times bodybuilders are in denial. Like they'll feel something that they'll just ignore it. Like they usually don't address health things until something actually happens.
Yeah.
well, I surmised maybe this is a case of that as well because didn't he retire previously because of a heart issue? Wasn't that why he retired
I'm
formally?
not sure. I don't know.
I think I heard that. I may be misspeaking, but so let's kind of go down. I guess this is the thought experiment of did he, if he did have something pre-existing, what may have been like causing that to set up the environment for him to go into a show in a compromised state and maybe have heart failure coming out of the show. Like,
I mean, it's really going to depend.
is it
We got to know
genetic?
what the
Is
we
it
would have
a
to know what the
genetic thing?
circumstance is first.
Say it again. Sorry.
But like anytime you start a contest prep, we're using things that elevate blood pressure, like Tren will elevate blood pressure. We use a lot of stimulants for energy. We're tired, we're exhausted, we're hungry. We use a lot of stimulants, which are vasoconstrictors. They're going to place stress there. A lot of bodybuilders just don't check their blood pressure frequently, and they should.
So
And
I I tend to think that like a lot of those things you just said on a person that doesn't have any pre-existing heart narrowing, that they're probably not going to pass because it's so infrequent. But I think there's just a subset of the population that, when they eat a certain way and take certain drugs, they get narrowing in their arteries. And then they go into a show and they may not even be aware. I mean, all the time, heart attacks are silent killers. They kill, middle-aged guys often just because they didn't know. They're like, yeah, I've just been like run down and tired, and then they die, and they're like, oh yeah, his ejection fraction was like 10%.
Mm.
You know.
What does Jason
So
say? Genetics is the gun and lifestyle is the trigger.
yeah.
Like some of these people were just kind of fucked from the get go. We just shortened the timeline with
So I
PEDs and
guess
whatnot.
I guess that's where I'm kind of trying to get to. Like, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, you almost need to run some pre stuff to kind of figure that out. You should run like obviously blood labs prior to starting any kind of like, especially anabolics, but just maybe like in your teens or 20s, getting like sample blood labs to see if like, oh, okay, I do have maybe a kidney issue or maybe a lipid issue or something like that that's just genetic. And then even a step further than that, getting kind of heart checks. I had to kind of like argue with my doctor when I was 35 to get a calcium score because he's like, oh, you're too young. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm a freaking 265-pound person that routinely just goes in and lifts like 600 pounds for 5 reps, 6 reps, and then I go home. Like, I'm not putting myself in a position to have like a cardiovascularly super great heart. So I want to like see what this stuff is looking like. So, maybe doing some of these kind of like procedures of echocardiogram, alongside the stuff would be extremely smart so that you kind of have the proof, because like people can have great lipids and everything and then die from narrowing arteries. It's not the best predictor. I mean, we're starting to find out more and more now that people with like high LDL like live longer and low LDL, and then they come out with a new thing. So the blood isn't the best predictor of your heart health specifically, in my opinion.
No, but it can give you, signs of things that need to be checked and whatnot. I think
It's better than nothing, absolutely. But I think
this
that
is the first this is the first generation where you really have easy access to blood work. In the past, it was pretty difficult. You had to get a prescription. This is like the first generation where you can pretty much go run anything you want whenever you want. And now they even have the mail-in at-home test. I think you use that one.
Yeah.
So it's just making things a lot easier to be monitored now, where historically it wasn't. Usually it was like a big thing to get your blood work done. I would say even 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it was difficult. And now it's very, very easy. So you can monitor these things much easier. But blood pressure is the main thing that people should be monitoring. Every competitor should have a cuff.
Absolutely.
I think these are the lowest level preventive maintenance things, and they're often not done. Like, there's a 300-pound bodybuilder professional at my gym, and I know for a fact he's never got labs done because he doesn't want to see it. And think about how often that, or people come to you and inquire, and they're like, "No, I've never gotten labs done. I've been running gear for 10 years, and it's always high doses of Trent." It's like you're asking to die, but they're not doing the basic preventive maintenance.
Yeah, you should. I mean, the more you know, the more you can go into it. I mean, could you, maybe see something and be like, oh, okay, my liver values are like crazy off the charts, but I've been pounding D-ball for, 10 weeks straight or something like that. So like it's obviously always going to be better just to know. And like what Phil was saying, the price nowadays is like getting better and better. Like he said, I do the Rhythm, and that one is like $97 a month, and it's every month. They mail me a kit. I put it on my arm. I draw my own blood, stick it in the stuff, send it back to them. I get my results in literally like 48 hours. And it's not everything I need, but it's at least kind of a baseline of, it's kind of like an array of pretty much all the major functions. And then if I want something a little bit deeper, I'll go order it from Algo RX and go more specific. Recently, I did that. They don't have like the most deep kidney values, so I wanted a cystatin C and a urine analysis, so I ordered those directly. And basically, Algo is you can order labs from Quest or LabCorp, and then they write a requisition for you. You print it off, you take it in. Kind of the same thing. They just mail you the results because they had a doctor write you the requisitions. So there's really no reason. And like all of that is to say that like I did all those labs kind of post show for like under $150 for like that one time. So, if you're going to run a freaking $3,000 pre-contest cycle, you better carve out $150 to run some fucking blood labs.
And in your blood work, actually, is a good thing to note that when they drew your creatinine and ran your EGFR, and then they did your cystatin, you were actually 20 points higher on the cystatin because it's much more accurate. When you have like a large bodybuilder or competitors, people that are very active, even if you've been like standing up all day the day prior or walking a lot, doing cardio, you're not going to get an accurate reading off taking creatinine for your ejection fraction. So cystatin C is really what you're going to need to run to get an accurate measure. So like your creatinine levels, because you're so big and because you have been so active, said you were in one place, and then your cystatin C showed that your kidneys were in much better condition than people would have thought by taking the basic panel.
Yeah. Same thing goes for GGT, ALT, AST.
Yeah, what Brian was just saying is the liver values can be skewed as well. The AST, ALT are kind of like the old school liver enzymes, but those can be skewed from just walking around and moving. If you're doing anything strenuous, it's going to elevate those, and your doctor might say, hey, you have liver failure. So the GGT is a better predictor. And then like Phil said, for the kidneys, instead of a creatinine, you can do a cystatin C. So, and then if you want to take it a step further, like I did the urine analysis, so it kind of tests what's actually coming out, not just what's in the blood.
I mean, you have to take things into consideration. Like, for example, your blood viscosity, right? When you're basically running your CBC and everything. So if your blood is thicker, it's gonna flow harder. It's like thicker motor oil going through your veins. If you're on constant stimulants, like that's one of the major things in contest prep people don't think about is things like clenbuterol with a very long half-life, vasoconstrictor, very strong beta agonist. It's a stimulant, right? And then you're doing coffee on top of that, caffeine. Some people are doing Adderall. They're doing tons of vasoconstrictors. Their blood's getting thicker. and it's really placing stress on the heart, and people are not taking that into consideration.
Your heart is beating maybe twice as fast as it would be just resting, and then you have a thicker blood, and then you have thinner walls that are like constricting. So now you're creating an environment for a lot of risk. If you get some kind of a blood clot or some kind of narrowing in your arteries or pathways, then you could have it could have a myocardial infarction where you block the blood going into your heart, and then you just die.
Even the wear and tear from the pressure alone on your heart and your kidneys is going to cause some damage. And eventually that's going to add up cumulatively long term. People are bodybuilding for 2 years, they're bodybuilding for 10, 15, 20, and that adds up, and people don't take that into consideration. And one of the main things that will retire bodybuilders is kidney function. People just don't talk about it.
So what Phil is saying is watch your blood pressure. Like you should always just have good blood pressure. If it starts getting elevated, do not ignore it. Like, stay hydrated, do your cardio to keep your circulatory system healthy, not running crazy doses. So this all kind of like goes back. All the things are like obviously related, like the heart and the kidneys, and then the blood in the liver is like your clotting factors from the liver. So like everything kind of has like obviously like a symbiotic relationship with the rest of the systems. So running something like crazy, like, oh, it's just my liver values are out of sync. Like, no, bro, you're causing a capillary action through your entire system because one system is not healthy.
So people forget that, other processes in the body are going to try to pick up the slack and compensate when another one's stressed. So it ends up creating damage through the entire system. It just starts at one place, right? If you think like a mechanic on a car, right? One thing breaks, then a whole bunch of things start breaking because different things are taking on stress now. There's different compensatory factors and whatnot. And that's what happens, But so we affect our cardiovascular system, but what usually blows out first is the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you don't get dry.
From kidney failure. So that's one that I am very cognizant of. My dad, he's diabetic and stuff. He has low kidney filtration as well. So it's something that I am like, I might have a genetic predisposition for it. So since I've been a bodybuilder for 20 years, I've always gotten my kidney values, and I've almost been like overly checking my labs on my kidneys because of like fear of you do not want to have kidney issues like down the road. It's not a fun looking thing to have dialysis or a kidney transplant or die from a kidney issue.
And that's something to touch on.
Right now, we can't really reverse it. We can just slow it down.
Something to touch on is we need to look back to our family history and see what we're pre-genetically disposed to. If your parents, one of them has, typical heart issues, diabetes, and so forth, you look back and then you watch for that in yourself because you can see that it's probably going to come at some point.
Absolutely.
Family history is something that needs to be looked at. And I think a lot of people will overlook things or not think about it. And they'll be like, oh, that's my mom's side, I didn't get that. Or that's my dad's side, I'm not going to get that. But why guess? You really should be sure and be aware of these things before you do it. But our industry, like historically, people just don't care until they have to care.
Yeah. A lot of people think like maybe, I'm sure Boston Lloyd thought, oh, it'll never happen to me, I'm not going to die. Even though he knew his kidneys were like compromised, he still kept pushing, to the last day he died, the last weeks he died, he was still pushing, doing stuff, taking stuff.
Didn't his mom even say he was still on oxys? Like, why would you be doing that? Like, that's going to stress your kidneys, right? And you're still doing it. And from what I've heard, he was still on cycle, and it's like, what do you think is going to happen?
I think a lot of it comes down to identity crisis. Without this, armor we put on, we're nothing. So a lot of people get attached to that. They're like, I would rather be dead than not be this fucking bodybuilder and whatever.
That's a big thing. I mean, you need to be comfortable with retiring. Look at some of the greatest of all time. Jay Cutler, he slid into, now he's like, he still works out, he still stays healthy, but he's not the Jay Cutler that won the Olympia, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, I guess, almost. But he's now a content creator, a podcaster, a business owner. He found other ways to be comfortable in his own skin with what he's doing and didn't have to be like, I'm just a big jacked guy that competes, Um, so let's talk about like maybe the coaching side. Maybe could Dwayne have done anything different coming out of this? Like, would maybe going to the hospital and getting hospital intervention been the answer
See,
to?
here's the thing. Here's the thing with me. I've been doing this a long time. If I have clients that are showing any type of effect whatsoever related to the heart, I'm gonna make them go to the hospital. I will pull them out of the show. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
I had a client with me at USA in 2016 who ballooned up after his show because he didn't do as well as he had hoped and gained like 20 something pounds in like 2 days. And I said to him, I straight said, I was like, you're not getting on the plane over 212. I'll punch you in your fucking face.
yeah,
I will tell them you're a risk of dying. They will not let you on this flight. You're not getting on this flight over a certain amount of water retention because it's too goddamn risky. And I've had these situations where clients will go out and eat things and balloon up. And I'm like, listen, this is not a fucking game. This is not a joke. Things can happen and they can happen very suddenly and very quickly.
yeah. And Phil's not just saying that either. We have a common friend. I have a common friend that was being coached by Phil, and he basically he's a designer. So when he will have a deadline, he'll work 24 hours straight, multiple days in a row, like 48 and stuff, barely sleep an hour, go back to work. And he had a lot of swelling in his feet and ankles. He sent me a picture and I sent it to Phil, and Phil like literally got on the phone with him. He's like, go to the fucking hospital right now. Like, like you do not want to fuck with if you're having congestive heart failure, which that's a symptom of it. If you have swelling in specifically your left ankle, right?
For him, it was a lack of movement because he was
Yeah.
sedentary.
It
I
ended
didn't
up being
realize.
fine. No, it ended up
I
being
didn't
fine,
realize.
but it's a risk that like just find out, just go, because like the cost of it and the inconvenience is better to know if you're like, oh, I might be at risk than to ignore it.
Well, our calves are referred to as our secondary heart, right? Because you're fighting gravity, your blood is being pumped down, but then it's got to be pumped back up. And if your calves are contracting, it's actually helping pump the blood back up. I didn't realize he was such a workhorse. He could sit there for 14, 16 hours and not stand up. So
Yeah.
like the blood was not being pumped back up, and he was getting water pooling in his ankles. That freaked me out. I didn't even consider that he could have been sitting there for 14 hours and not moving. I'm like, how is that possible? But like when you see that, that's a major thing. This is why walking is one of the major indicators for longevity and cardiovascular health in life. Because the more you walk, the more you're helping your heart pump that blood back uphill. My dad was born with heart issues. He was supposed to die at 49. He died at 69 because my mom made him get a job as a mailman. My mom was smart enough to realize walking is going to help your heart. She didn't know exactly why, but it made him live 20 years longer. Walking is a main indicator with longevity.
So
Yeah.
as coaches, how can we be more involved and prevent this? Like having clients during prep send pictures of their blood pressure monitor, having a step count to ensure we're actively moving, especially with sedentary jobs. You get the intake, it tells you I work at a
Now that
computer
you
all
just
day.
said that, Brian, because Brian is actually helping me put together the new check-in forms and format. We should stick blood pressure red on there.
Yeah. That's
Like
smart.
make it
Well,
mandatory.
that's already had that. And like I said, when someone's stagnant, they're working at a computer, that's the person you have to give a step count. Tell them to get a walk pad so we know they're not just sedentary all day, not moving. Certain little things in the check-in form, or depending on the relationship with the client, they need higher attention for like things like this, so we
Yeah.
know what they're actually doing and how they're feeling. Because
I had a
like I said, you got the horse blinder effect. Someone on a mission is going to look past every side effect, especially example like girls on cycle. They will look past every bit of virilization to get that plastic trophy. And that's where it may be good to communicate with their partner and be like, hey, I need you to watch for these things. There's some things I can't see. Maybe I'm not talking to them on the phone. I'm not going to hear their voice. When you see something happen, you take the drugs away. Just get more
Well,
involved.
usually you'll see signs of this, and I've caught this in the past when somebody's checking for them, right? Because I have sections where it says pumps, how strong I am, my performance, and they'll say like, "Oh, my performance is down. I'm not recovering as well between sets." So then I'll start probing, like, "Are you out of breath?" Like, I'll look at that. Basically, I'll look at their current status, like, are they retaining a lot of water? How fast has their weight gone up? Because water retention is going to push blood pressure up. I look at what their stack is. So I'll start looking at all of these factors and say, okay, wait a minute, do we need to get checked? Often, no, because I'm very health conscious and clear about how I want things done. But every once in a while, I will see something. I'll be like, no, we got to go get checked. Like I'll say to them, like, I need your blood pressure every single Monday, no matter what. And like I just said, we should put that in there mandatory, like just across the board for everybody, because I kind of monitor that manually, but we need to keep an eye on things as far as if a client has gained 15 pounds in 2 weeks because we just put them on a bulk, right? That's a lot of weight to gain. That's a lot of water. It might be glycogen. It might be intracellular. It doesn't matter. You're putting on a lot of water. Your blood pressure is going to be going up. If you're taking certain things that are going to elevate blood pressure, are they prone to their blood pressure becoming elevated? Are the drugs affecting their sleep? Are they staying in a sympathetic state where they're not getting into their parasympathetic and they're not getting into their rest and digest, and heart rate's coming down? Check what their resting heart rate is. Sometimes you're going to catch people in their resting heart rates 90, 95 all day long. I've caught clients using Adderall that weren't telling me they were using Adderall because I made them constantly check their resting heart rate, and I caught that shit. I'm like, why is your resting heart rate so high all day long? I'm like, this is not happening from coffee, and then they'll break that and tell me because they know I'm probably going to figure it out, But we've got to keep an eye on these different things as far as like.
I like to have my clients use an Apple Watch because I started doing in person, and now I'm starting to like keep an eye on their like heart rate throughout their workout. And I specifically had one client, he had just kind of started with me and we're training, and I'm like, what's your heart rate at? And it was like 165, and we were doing like a casual bodybuilding workout. It was hard, but like 165 is extreme. And like I got him on like doing steps, walking. He got a dog, and he's like, walking. He's lost significant amount of weight. Like I had to break him off. I told him like, bro, you are feeble. Like you are in a really, really bad state right now. The guy's 41 years old, kind of a bodybuilder, but like, and he, his heart rate was like that. So that is an indicator of like really pretty bad health, So we started doing HIIT cardio after. I have him do it when he trains with me on like an upper body day. I do HIIT cardio after. I have him do 5 rounds of the assault bike, 20-second sprint, 60-second rest. So that just gets him, so kind of blows out the pipe, so to speak. And then with the rest of it is just steps. But he lost, What's that?
Like what you said, because you're training in person now and you're doing personal training and you're working with general population now too. So I used to manage gyms in New York City for a long time with personal training departments and whatnot. And we would check blood pressure. We would check all health markers and things like that. So sometimes people are going to come to you and you might think that like you said, their heart rate's 165 and like, you can't be sure if that's because they're out of shape or because they've been out of shape so long and their health's been so bad that something's actually existing, right? Like there's heart problems. Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to see how much that improves over time, because that person might lose 25 pounds and their heart rate's not coming down, right? Their blood pressure is not coming down. That means something's wrong. It means it wasn't just that way because they were out of shape. It means something's broken, something malfunctioning. We got to probe deeper. And oftentimes we would find that because when people come to you for personal training, they've been out of shape for 20 something years. It's not like they got out of shape last year and they're like, I'm going to get back in shape. It's been decades. It's been a long time, and damage happens in that time.
Yeah. So there's another, I did a podcast earlier in the week with Ashley Contorno, and we talked about Steve bum muscle, which Phil had coached him as well. So he has deep insight into what he was doing prior. And then I'm not sure how long it was, maybe a year and a half later was when he passed after being coached with you. He was with a different coach. And, basically she said with the autopsy she got that he died from liver failure. It was like, I think it might've been just acute liver failure. And so basically the clotting factors aren't being created. And, it just kind of like shoots a capillary action through the whole body if you're having internal hemorrhaging because your liver is not processing correctly. So basically, I know you said many times when he was with you, he was pretty stellar labs.
I went back in my phone when that happened. I have good blood work from him. And yeah. I don't have any liver elevations or anything like that, which means, like you said, it had to have been acute. For it to be acute, it had to be aggressive, right? So after me, we split apart. He went to another coach, and then he went to another coach. It was 2 coaches. I don't want to name any specific names, but the second coach is blaming the first coach, saying that he wrecked his health and that he messed everything up, and then he came to him. But here's the thing: you're not going to have acute liver failure unless there's continual stress to it, right? So
Yeah.
that means that there was still continual stress applied, and it wasn't like you're not going to cause damage and then completely back off, and the damage just keep worsening at that pace. It had to be sustained. So I would probably say both are responsible. And the thing is, too many coaches in our industry are not being responsible enough to where they can't handle the situation. You should say, I am not equipped to do this. I'm not educated to do this. This is not my ballpark. This is not my wheelhouse. Because I know for a fact the second coach is not well versed in this. He should not have taken on a client in a situation where he says that he had already identified that there was health issues. Then why are you sitting there trying to do something when you don't know how to do it? If I have somebody come to me and there's a situation where I'm not prepared to handle it, I will say, I'm not good at this. You need another coach.
Let's do a little bit of like a thought experiment with. We don't know exactly what he was taking or what the protocol was, but we kind of can see the outside. Steve trained extremely hard.
He's very strong.
He's extremely strong. I mean, he was, there's videos of him squatting 600 pounds, RDLing 600 pounds for reps for like a big set. I remember the guy was an absolute savage. So on top of the anabolics, so we'll talk about the anabolics in a minute. Just training to that level creates a ton of metabolites, and your liver's got to clean up and kidneys got to clean up those metabolites. So people can actually have rhabdo just from training. Aside from taking any kind of antibiotics, they can have rhabdo, and basically that's just metabolites that get built up in your blood, and it can destroy your kidneys and it can damage your liver. So training that hard, I think he was almost 300 in the off season, 260s in the competition prep. So being that heavy, training that hard can create a starting environment for the issues. And then you throw on top of that some kind of heavy cycle, heavy orals, and that's where in my assumption, probably the issue started to happen was there was something that was a lot of stress already, and then it just became extreme from the cycle.
Yeah, he should have probably just backed off everything entirely and done a full check and gotten a report on exactly what was going on, exactly where the problems were, and really worked on fixing that rather than trying to like slow roll it back into bodybuilding. And I don't know if they ramped up or not. I don't know the entire circumstance, but
I think he was
the fact of the matter is there was some type of stress that was applied that pushed this off the edge.
I think he was in prep, but he was just a few weeks out from the show.
He was in prep?
Yeah, when he passed.
And he was a few weeks out, so he was definitely on orals.
So he died June, I think around like June 3rd or June 4th. And I think he might have been doing USAs. He may have had to have done a show prior to that. I'm not specific on that, but I'm guessing he was probably doing USAs was his goal show, but he might have had to have been doing like the LA or something that was prior to that. So he might have been, 4 to 7 weeks out when he passed. So that's the spot where you kind of start, you may have had orals in already, but you might start ramping up the orals even harder.
Here's the thing that bothers me now that you told me that is the fact that the coach that he was working with at the end, I'm just saying what I've heard. I'm not sure. This is hearsay that he came to him and he said, listen, we got to check this. We got to get this fixed. Your blood work's not good, this and that. But then you put him into a contest prep. He obviously wasn't on light drugs going into a contest prep. And that means you obviously didn't check thoroughly enough, or you kind of didn't take it seriously enough. And then that's pretty much what pushed it over the edge. So like if you get somebody who's having health issues and you're not equipped, you're not educated, this is not your ballpark. Listen, the coach that in question is pretty damn good with competitors, but I don't think he's well versed in health at all. So if you got a perfectly healthy competitor, yeah, go for it. If something's wrong, tell that person, I can't do this for you. You need somebody who specializes in something, knows how to help you.
Well, this specific coach was also Dwayne's coach. So at two people, yes, he does have an extensive client list, but how many clients have you had die, Phil? None from natural causes, or no, from like.
Well, two have died once. That's it.
Two have died once?
No, suicide.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like aside from suicide, dying from a system failure, you
I've never
haven't
had somebody hospitalized
you
because
haven't
if
ever
I
had,
see something, I will freak out. And if they don't listen to me, I'll drop them right then
and
and
you've
there. I'm like,
had
I'm
you've
not
had
doing this.
thousands of clients, so just to say you've had a lot of clients, to have two of them die, that is like, are you doing something that's not maybe in the best interest
I've
for?
had pros come to me and say like, "Oh, I want to gun it. I want to do this. I want to do that." And I've had to tell them, "I'm not the coach for you because I'm not doing that." Like,
Yeah,
listen, truth of the matter is, at the top level, yes, sometimes it is drug warfare, but I'm not going to be that guy who's going to do it. I don't care about. I'm not going to try to build my reputation on the back of somebody's health that I'm going to put in the grave before they're 60. I'm
yeah.
not doing that. So like the fact of the matter is, it just some coaches are okay with it, and then they'll blame the client. Oh, he wanted to do it. He was okay with it. You know what? Maybe that's okay morally. I don't know, but to me, it's not. For me,
So
I'm not okay with that.
at the end of the day, we're not licensed health professionals, but it does get very muddy because we can obviously control people's health to a significant degree. I mean, we're pulling people back from the brink of, having, diabetes, insulin sensitivity issues, liver issues. Like a lot of times I get clients coming to me and I start running. I like, all right, let's figure out what is going on. And then I'm like, oh, you need to really watch out for this because your A1C is 5.6. You're pre-diabetic. Like we need to get you need to be aware because like if you keep going down this path, you're going to really have issues in the next decade of, you could, whatever the downhill slope is. So we do control people's health to a significant degree. We do, I guess, recommend on people's health to a significant degree. But at the end of the day, we're not health professionals. And it's a sticky situation because I feel like we know a lot more than some health professionals. 'Cause a lot of health professionals, they may have went to med school and they understand what like the chemical process of coenzyme A interacting with that and stuff, but they don't understand the bird's eye view of like calories
Well,
in,
we have
steps in, body fat loss. They kind of
we
like,
have a little bit of we have a little bit of an advantage there though because we deal with these people every day. The doctor's not inclined. Listen, the
yeah,
doctors are very educated, they're very smart, but they only get to see the person every so often, and they're looking at a
absolutely, yeah,
snapshot of blood work and they're having a 5 minute conversation. Whereas we get to monitor them all day, every day if we want to. So we get a lot more data, we get a lot more experience to where we can make a difference. Now, if it's something small, like I can't even tell you, I've lost count of the amount of people I've gotten off of blood pressure medications, that I've gotten off of cholesterol medications, that I've gotten off of antidepressants, all different ways. Because if you can look at a system and you can understand what's going on and what it is they're doing, and it's not something serious, right? Like I'm not going to pull somebody off blood pressure medication whose blood pressure is 160 over
yeah, yeah.
95 when I
No,
take it out.
you get it into a healthy range where it's already like if they're using the blood pressure medication, it's going to push them too low, and then they come up like
Yeah,
reducing
exactly. So
those. Yeah,
you walk back slow and you say like, okay, maybe I can pull this out. Let's try it for a day. Let's try it for 2 days. Let's try it for 3 days. Oh shit, it's working. Okay, now you don't need it, right? A lot of
yeah,
times they never needed it. The doctor will just like almost
prophylactically.
throw like a newspaper over
Mm.
shit. It's just like a fucking. It's
Yeah,
not a fix. It's not a solution. It's just something to temporarily compensate and deal with it, right? Like a lot of times, high blood pressure can be anxiety induced, racing heart rate and things like that. And they're giving them beta blockers and things like that, which will bring it down because
yeah.
the heart rate starts to race because of beta overstimulation because of the sympathetic state due to the anxiety. But it's not getting to the root cause,
So
right? And
I've actually had clients that I've sent. I like we'll look at their stuff and I'll say like, oh, okay, you need to go to your doctor and get a blood pressure medication, and then like just as an immediate fix because like their blood pressure is 165 over 120, or maybe not that high, but like 165 is their systolic. So then they get it lower, and then my goal from there is to start bringing them into like a healthy range through our nutrition and through our training and supplementation where they can like take that out and then they stay down at that level. But like sometimes I've sent people for blood pressure medication because I'm like, you do not want to have high blood pressure and destroy your kidneys in the meantime while we're getting you down. Like it might take us 6 months to get you down to a normal or a better state, but you do not want to stay up at high blood pressure for 6 months while you're on the way down. So
I think a
Like,
lot of
Yeah, but
this.
the thing
I
is, a
don't
lot of
prescribe
times,
medication, but I'm just saying, like, go to your doctor and tell them you want telmisartan, you know?
but a lot of times the doctor's recommendations are outdated and it actually causes more harm than good. Like the main one is what? Cut your salt intake, cut your
Mhm.
sodium down. And that's one of the
Yeah.
worst things you could possibly tell somebody when they're trying to lower their blood pressure. A lot of times what it is it's erratic intake. And now I'll even do this to myself sometimes by accident. I know I'm doing it, but I don't catch it until I'm in the moment. Like I like to fast, right? But I'll have no electrolytes in the morning. I'll have none all day. So my aldosterone's obviously going up, and then I'll eat like McDonald's for dinner, and that's like 5,000 milligrams of sodium, and boom, my blood pressure shoots up. Why? Because my aldosterone rose all day because I was eating no sodium. If your sodium is consistently intake throughout the day, aldosterone's going to stay down, and then that won't happen. So a lot of times it's self-inflicted high blood pressure, usually later in the day because they're eating low sodium. And then finally, when you eat a high sodium meal, well, your body is holding on to an excessive amount, trying to compensate for what you weren't giving it in the first place. So it's just very bad advice that now,
Yeah,
thankfully, a lot of doctors are speaking out against.
I think a lot of
yeah,
this can be helped at a higher standard of coaching. Like when you onboard a client, having a prerequisite of I need a clean bill of health before we start pushing or anything like that. But a lot of coaches, we're just getting on cycle right now. You get bloods later, this and that. We don't know what we're going
yeah,
anymore.
they're just happy to get the client and then making results with the
Well,
client. They're not trying to like,
the hard part about that is a lot of the clients like they're on the edge, they sign up, but they're not like all in, right? So they want results now. And if you don't start getting them results, they're just going to stop after the second month. They're
yeah,
just disappear. They're not going to check in because nothing is like stimulating them. They're not getting that dopamine spike from all that muscle that they gained and all that fat that they lost. They don't want to sit there and spin their wheels, you know? So a lot of the coaches now are thinking client retention. If I don't entertain this person and get them some quick results, they're not going to stay.
But it's how you deliver the message. Like I just onboarded a client and he's, had a long time off and he came to me, he's already on a couple like grams of gear. And I'm like, well, where's your labs? I didn't pull any. You just had a newborn. You got to drive home. Why? What are we doing here? It's going to look
yeah.
awesome, being jacked. But if you're not here for your kid, what does it matter? So it's how we communicate with our clients too. You got to drive home what's important. Or like you've said, Phil, in the past, bodybuilders don't care about their kidneys or health. But they do when you say that's how you get dry. You're never going to be dry again
But
on stage. You
that's
gotta you gotta meet them
exactly
at
what
where
you
they're
just
at.
said. The most ironic thing is if you're healthier, it's way easier to build muscle. It's way easier to get dry. It's way easier to be a better bodybuilder than if you just ignore these things and have high blood pressure and have these issues. Then you have an issue where like, okay, now we got to use a diuretic because your blood pressure is high coming into and you're retaining water coming into a peak week or something like that. So we have
And
to use
you
a
and I
diuretic because
And you and I had this conversation when we were doing your shows earlier in the year because you would always express like genetically I might have kidney issues. I'm worried about my kidneys. What did I say? There's no fucking way you're this dry all day long with bad kidneys. Like Luke is a very, very dry physique when he's lean. He's not a very hard Pete because he's always dry. And that's a sign of really good kidneys. And it's crazy because like I said, when I signed up with HD Muscle back in the day, I did it because of the health and wellness line, because it was really well done. It was the best done in the industry at that point. And it was crazy because I'm trying to get people to do it and nobody wants to take it. And then I'm like, hey, guess what? If your kidneys aren't functioning, you won't get dry on stage. All of a sudden, everybody's buying Kidney HD. I'm like, hey, listen, you can't get peeled for stage and digest properly and build muscle if your liver's not functioning. Oh shit, now we better get liver HD. But once I said you're not going to look great, they start caring. Not hey, you're going to die.
You just got to find a way to sell it. Like my parents, when I was growing up, I didn't like to brush my teeth, and my mom was like, "Well, girls aren't going to talk to you. Your breath smell like shit." And I was like, "Fuck, maybe I should brush my teeth." So it's just the way you deliver the message; it can make all the difference.
I agree with that, Brian.
It's sometimes people are just stubborn, and like you're gonna get the people that just they're like, no, I want results now, or I'm gonna find another coach.
And
You know what?
another one.
I always tell people it's not. I've taught apprenticeship programs, I've taught classes, and I tell everybody the same thing. You get one shot at your reputation. When your reputation tanks, like the person who was with Dwayne and with Steve when they both passed, has a reputation in the industry. All the coaches know this, that person is known as an aggressive PED coach. Now, I don't know if he does it anymore because I haven't seen any of his recent programs. I remember Matt Porter had a bunch back in the day, and the doses were crazy. So he has a reputation for doing that. You get one shot at your reputation. If you start making people sick and killing people and hospitalizing people, then that's going to follow you. It's not worth the monthly fee. I've dropped people left and right because I felt like they were going to affect my reputation in some way because they weren't going to listen to me, or something was wrong, or I wasn't equipped for the situation. So if I didn't know how to handle the situation, or if they weren't going to listen, I'm not working with you. I don't care about the $400 or $500 a month because I'm going to lose a hell of a lot more than that when I've got 15, 20 cases of sick people affecting my reputation following me around.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of it comes down to people not understanding when they're pushing it too far? Like they don't know what dose is astronomical. Like a lot of great bodybuilders are fucking retarded. They have no idea what's going on. They just follow the plan. So they don't know like, 300 milligrams anadrol is insane. Maybe
It's never
discussing,
real until it's real is the thing.
but
They don't
maybe
think they never think that it's going to happen to them.
I think some people just truly don't know what's unreasonable. They think like, Luke's got to be doing this because look at him. I don't look like that. And maybe discussing like what a reasonable level is so they understand where not to go to some general idea. I know it's case
I
by
know
case, but like what
I
would
know
be an
past
unreasonable about orals like in the off season or prep? Like,
I
I know
mean, for
past
me,
Olympians who have had bad blood work, and the doctor showed concern and told the person, "Listen, you should pull out of this show," and then they went home and upped the doses.
yeah, well,
yeah.
you can't stop that, but maybe educating on people where like a generalized line is like, okay, going over 100 milligrams of androl in the off season on training days is insane. Like,
It's going to be situational, right? It's person to person. Some people just have great health genetics and they're very resilient.
Yeah.
Other people can't get away with shit.
That's
Like
what Phil said is the toughest thing. Like there's a lot of people out there that can take 100 milligrams on 4 times a week and maybe not really be affected that bad. And then there's like someone on the other side that could have maybe go into rhabdo and have liver failure from one dose or a couple doses of that.
I've got a
So
client on
there's
Accutane right now, and his AST and ALT are 25.
there's obviously like the recommended dose is probably what the pharmaceutical company came out with originally. Like if they're making 50 milligram anadrol, it's probably because like they did R&D and they did clinicals and stuff, and then they're like, okay, this is the dose that's like the lowest side effects for like the most benefits. And so kind of taking like what their recommendations might be like the best start. And then obviously if you're coming into a prep, we do extreme things for short periods of time to have a certain look or be a certain way, but not doing that chronically or not making that like our normal protocol is obviously going to be a smart way to go.
It's an individual basis basically, and the only way to know is to check. You can't guess. There's no sometimes there's no early warning signs. You've got to run your blood work. If you see something abnormal, then you've got to dig deeper and you got to check things out. You've got to check your blood pressure. You got to be aware of how you're feeling, your own biofeedback, things like that. Being out of breath walking up the stairs is not a normal thing. It's just people just ignore the early warning signs, and they need to start paying attention.
Well, they need to, if they do have a warning sign, they need to like kind of go in and research it. Cause I've had ultrasounds done on my gallbladder. I've had ultrasounds done on I had kind of like a whole body ultrasound done. I had calcium CTs done on my heart. I think I've had 3 of them done now. I've done, like not just relying on like the most minimum stuff. If you have something you're like, okay, I feel like I might be having an issue, going a step further and getting imaging done or getting a backup test done on it so you can reconfirm, like I just did for my kidneys. Like I was a little bit nervous about it because I had like maybe a bad test while I was in prep. As soon as I came off those drugs, I retested and then I did more extensive tests to kind of reconfirm, like, am I having an issue? And if I had an issue, then I would have redesigned my future going forward.
Absolutely. Listen, so there's a lot of coaches. There's people that just don't want to know. There's a very well-known UK coach who's known to have immense strength, very popular, who I was told by somebody very close to that person that he didn't run his blood work for a very long time on excessively high doses because he didn't want to know. He knew something was probably wrong, and he just didn't want it to. He didn't want it to affect his training because he wasn't going to stop either way. So he just didn't want to know.
Well,
Mhm.
Fuad was famous for saying that on his podcast, and now he's partnered with, I believe, Merrick Health. So now, eventually, I'm sure when he worked with John Meadows, John like, no, we're not gonna. We got to send you for some labs and stuff like that. And so maybe that's about the time that he started doing more deep stuff. But yeah, it's tough sometimes. I think some people are blinded by it hasn't happened yet, so it won't happen. They're confident that like they haven't died from smoking, so smoking must not
They don't
kill.
realize that you're not going to reverse this. All you can do is slow it down at that point. You're not
Yeah.
reversing it.
So, but anyway, I think we kind of beat that one to death, so to speak. Do we have any other topics we wanted to talk to Phil on since we're on the pod that would be less heavy?
I mean, this is a pretty heavy one. I think we could probably do other ones in the future that are a little lighter and a little more entertaining, a little more fun. This is just one that had to be talked about that people don't want to talk about. People just don't want to hear about it. People don't want to think about it. But the good thing is, I do notice that a lot of younger kids now are paying attention to their health. Like I've got a lot of young kids that I don't have to chase them for their blood work. They'll say, What are we running? Like I'm due for blood work. I don't even have to remind them. They remind me. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
that's
starting to
awesome.
become like ubiquitous through the industry that like, oh, if you're on anabolics or if you are in a prep or whatever, you do need to have your bloods. And they kind of almost use it as like a popular thing now. Like, yeah, I did, like they're like talking, they're making content about it. They're doing stuff like that. I
I don't care
myself,
what the reason is. As long
I
as it's
myself,
happening, I'm good with that.
I partnered with Algo so that I can get, I can help people get labs and medications and stuff to mitigate side effects. So I think that it's becoming more accessible and more widely appreciated with like almost everybody.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the drive home things are doing your preventive maintenance, having your blood pressure cuff at home, maybe an A1C test at home to periodically check throughout the off season or whatever. Even though it may be slightly inaccurate, you can watch trends. Getting your blood work every 3 to 4 months, more is better, so you can't really go wrong with that. And then around the age of like 35, an angiogram, calcium score, and EGK or EKG. I think that should be like the gold standard of what you should be doing to really. And then also, like I said, talk to your family and figure out your genetic history. See if you're prone to some of these issues.
Let's talk real quick about some of the things that people can do in their like just their training, their daily life, stuff like that, that does prolong their longevity. Specifically for me, I'm thinking I absolutely love fasted cardio. I can see just cardio in general, but for me, fasted. When I am on my shit and I'm doing it, I feel so much better. I feel like it obviously lowers my blood pressure. It increases my digestion. My training capacity is so much better. So like I am so much more elite of an athlete by just doing this 20, 30 minutes on the Stairmaster for me, daily. I try to get it in 5, 6 days a week. Lately, I haven't been because I've been dealing with this like plantar fasciitis thing. But typically, I really like doing it. So that's one thing. What are like some other things that they can do? Supplements they can take. How much water they're
There,
drinking. So like, what are some like tips?
there's simple things that everybody in the world should be doing, and that's steps and hydration. That's something that will
Hydration.
add years to every single person's life across the board, no matter what. Steps and hydration. Like Brian said, getting your A1C checked, knowing where your sensitivity is. High blood sugar is a major cause of cardiovascular disease, long-term kidney damage, things like that. So just keeping an eye on your A1C, keeping an eye on your blood pressure. But drinking water in steps, just that alone is going to prolong your life. It's so simple to do, and almost anybody can do it. You can there's walking pads now that you can get off of Amazon for $100. It's a mini treadmill that goes under your bed. There's no reason you can't have that.
You can just go outside.
Or you can go outside. My point is, like, oh, I'm busy, I'm working. You can walk on the treadmill while you talk on the phone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Standing
I had a
desk.
client. I had a client. She was mostly just a lifestyle client, and I prescribed her, 8,000 steps a day, and she was like, "How am I going to get that?" And I was like, she
Pretty
lived in
easy.
Arizona and she worked at an office job, and she would like, she would get in like very minimal, 2,000-3,000 steps. And I was like, we really need to get that up if we want to like get you in shape, like you're saying you want to get into. And she's like, how am I going to do it? And I'm like, really, 1,000 steps is like a 10 to 15-minute walk. It's not that extreme. Like do that, after each meal, do that, 3 times a day, do a 10-minute walk around the neighborhood. If you have a dog, it's even better because then you have like a reason, your dog loves fucking walking. Do it with it, your dog. So that was one kind of like funny one. And for her, I felt bad because she did live in an environment where it was extreme. So she was like not going to go outside. So she did exactly what you said. She got one of those walking pads. She took it to her office between, on her breaks. She'd have 15-minute breaks. She would walk on the walking pad, put in a little podcast. So there's definitely things like that you can do that are going to help your health significantly. And then my other client, he got a dog. The one that I was saying his heart rate was 160 while we were training. And now, like, literally, we'll train with him, and like his heart rate will be like 105 training. It'll get up to like 130, 140, but on like our heavy hard sets, and then it'll drop within 3 to 5 minutes. It drops back down to this like more casual baseline. So he like got significantly better, mostly I would say from just fixing his diet and having a dog. Like basically.
So the take-home message here is get a dog, because now I'm going to be doing my morning steps every day because somebody needs to go poopy. So
yeah. So there's
starting off the day with like a little bit of fasted training is always going to be a good thing. It's going to get your nervous system woken up. It's going to get your heart rate moving. You want to hydrate obviously before that. It's going to prime your digestion. It's going to put you in a positive state for the day. It's got a lot of positive neurotransmitter effects as well. So there's no reason why you shouldn't get up an extra 15 minutes and just go for a walk.
Yep.
Yeah. Aside from So there's like kind of a big debate if fasted cardio is better than non-fasted. And for me personally, I like it fasted because it's at the beginning of my day, just what Phil said. I get up, I start my day. I just kind of like whatever. If I don't do it, I almost kind of like casually go through my day, and I feel like there's something missing. Like I may not have as much hunger for my meals. My digestion might be a little bit slower because I'm not like activating, just moving around like that. So I think that it's the fasted thing. It may not be the most like scientifically like backed, but there are cofactors, like Phil said, of it actually like amplifying your productivity. Maybe you don't need coffee if you're like getting your blood moving first thing, so you can like make better decisions by doing specifically that. If you can, if you're trying to get every minute of sleep and you get your steps in throughout the day or at the end of the day, that's probably okay too. But just me personally, I've seen that like I like it to do it first thing.
Well, it's good because it's setting a behavioral tone, right? So like, what do they say in the military? The first thing they do is say, make your bed, right? Because now you've accomplished something. You've accomplished the first thing through the day, right? You've already accomplished something to start the day. And then those things start to build. It's behavioral. So you're either programming yourself to be lazy or you're programming yourself to do what you're supposed to do rather than what you feel like doing from the start of the day. And yeah, you're going to end up having a more productive day. So like I have for the last couple of years, I've had a routine where I wake up in the morning, I do the same goddamn thing every single time, day in, day out, whether I feel like it or not, because it gets me moving. It sets my pace for the day. And then I notice that I'm on schedule. And I can't really tell you what would happen if I didn't do it because I never don't do it. Because I know that it makes me more productive. And I think that that's a good part to start your day, is to just get up and do something like that. A lot of people feel like, oh, well, I got to have my coffee in the morning first. No, you don't. Get up and walk. It's walking. It's not hard. No one's telling you to run around the block. Just get your blood pumping, get your heart moving. And, it's going to set the pace for the rest of the day.
Yeah, if you think about it, right when we wake up, we're waking up due to cortisol, blood sugar spikes. And then you go straight to work, your emails and stuff like that. You stay in that sympathetic state. Versus if you immediately wake up, go on a fasted outside walk, we're sitting our circadian rhythm, we're getting sunlight, starting all the systems. You're probably drinking water, and also the perceived stress aspect. You don't, go out there and listen to a podcast. Just go out there and think. Premeditate your day. Figure out what you have going on. Immediately switch into that parasympathetic state. Your water's in, sunlight. There's so many benefits to that. And that's just a win right off the rip, like y'all are saying.
So, yeah, I agree with that, Brian. So hydration wise, do you guys have like a standard that you try to tell your clients to do,
Oh, it's
or
in the program.
it's in your
Mm,
program? I try to write it where it's just throughout the day, because I find that like what I basically do is I give them, you know, like 10 to 12 ounces with their meal, like just whatever to get their meal down. And then between their next meal, try to get in just a 20-ounce water bottle between meals, like whatever. And by the end of the day, that ends up being like a little over a gallon, gallon and a quarter. And it's kind of almost just like spacing it out. I find that people, if they're like trying to drink a gallon, they get like intimidated. They're like, "Well, I'm drinking off this huge gallon, and I'm like getting nowhere." They almost get like intimidated, or they like give up because
Well,
they're
the
beating
whole thing
themselves.
is you've slept all night. You haven't really drank anything. You're waking up dehydrated. Drinking water first thing in the morning is very, very important. It's going to kickstart your system and kickstart all the processes that you're going to
Yeah.
need for the day. So if you ever look into my programs, it literally says wake, and then the first line is an amount of water that you have to drink before you do anything. Literally, the first thing in my plan to start your day is drink a certain amount of water.
Yeah.
Then you can go do whatever the hell else you want. You're drinking your water as soon as you get up. That's what's happening.
Yep.
mm.
So let's see. What are some other kind of quick tips? I think I think a lot of people don't realize how many calories they get through carbohydrates. They can be extremely useful, but you can really push them up. I'm mostly talking for my lifestyle people that are coming to me, way out of shape or whatever. Typically, I think competitors maybe do a little bit better, but unless they're just trying to like perma bulk and they're going crazy. But like we talked about a bunch, that A1C is kind of for me is tied directly to calories, and then carbohydrates would be the secondary. Like if your calories are extreme, no matter what they come from, it's gonna be an issue. And then if your carbohydrates are probably the reason that your calories are extreme, is going to be the secondary. So
Well, I think people just aren't aware of what it is that they're eating and the trace calories that exist in their foods. Like what we used to do is we used to run a sales pitch for personal training sales, right? And one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to figure out, because at the end, what are they going to say? Oh, I don't have the money, I can't afford it, right? So what we would do is we would nitpick through their day the shit that they're not supposed to have anyway. We'd say, see, you can take the money from here and put it there. And I'd tell you 8 times out of 10, New York City, the first thing they're getting is a Starbucks, and that's 600 calories, something like
yeah,
that. It's like, oh, there you go. There's $15 a day towards your personal training because we're going to cut that out anyway.
yeah, yeah. I have a client, and she's pretty small. She's like 95 pounds, and I wrote her a nutrition plan, and I put how much calories are in it, and I all that stuff, and she's like, oh my god, this is like so much. And I'm thinking it's so much calories, and I'm thinking like I ended up telling her, when you order those, because she was just a chronic door dasher, she's a teacher, so she just like door dashes food all the time, has them bring it, eats it on the go while the kids are at lunch and stuff like that. So I'm like, while you're eating that like meal, those meals come, they are 1,000, 1,500 calories before you even know it. They have such sneaky ways of getting calories in, like fats, like if there's some oil in it, if it's greasy, there's
You know
so
what's a
much
big one?
calories in fats.
You know what's a big one? Oh, I just had a salad for lunch
Yeah.
Mm.
covered in dressing, which is like a
Oil and
thousand
sugar.
calories.
Yeah. So there's actually both things. So she was getting in my opinion, way more calories. Obviously she was, because she was like heavier than she wanted to be. So I was like, you're not getting heavy from like not eating too much. Like you're eating calories somewhere. So I taught her. She was like, well, I don't want to get like an eating disorder from like all this stuff. And I'm like, look, being educated about what you're putting in your body should just be a basic human thing. Like understanding like, oh, I'm weighing the food that I'm eating because that's how much my body needs, should be taught in elementary school, but it's not. And then, like you were saying, on the cost side, she was like, oh, I don't know if I can afford this in-person training. And I was like, well, start making your meals. You're spending $40 per meal multiple times a day. Like you could literally probably get by on $10 a day if you're eating, clean foods, chicken, rice, vegetables, and a piece of beef. Probably $20 a day, where you're spending $80. Like there's your whole budget to get every training literally every day. So
Yeah, no,
um,
absolutely.
So yeah, making your own food. That could be another tip, is understanding what you put into it, weighing it so you understand the calories that are going into your body, getting in enough protein, not getting in too many sugars or fats or whatever would be probably another tip that we could give for just longevity and health.
Yeah, I mean, listen, knowing what you're eating and being aware of what you're doing is a major factor, and a lot of people just aren't aware of it. We would sit down with people every time we signed up a new client. We would say, "Okay, what are you eating for the day?" Like we write it down, we're writing this down, we're writing this down. Now we're at 3,000 calories, and they had previously told me, "Oh, I'm probably eating 1,500." Now
Yeah,
you're doubling that. You don't even realize it.
yeah. Just because you're off season, it's not a get out of jail free card to just smash whatever. Oh, I'm trying to get an extra calories because I'm trying to grow. Or I can eat this like chocolate cake. Yeah, you can occasionally. But like if you make it like a every time you go out to dinner, and you go out to dinner 5 nights a week, then you're starting to run into like, hey, like let's be a little more serious about not even just about being a bodybuilder, just about being a healthy human. Like just pick better practices of being a better human.
Yeah.
So all right, I'm not sure if you guys had any more things at the top of your mind, but
I
how
think we
long was
pretty
the
much covered exactly what we needed to cover as far as discussing what's going on and bringing light to the things that need to bring light to, and things that possibly could have gone on, things that can be avoided, things that coaches should look out for. If will people listen? Who knows? Like usually you gotta like really pound these topics for a long time for them to start to catch. I mean, John Meadows started pushing health 20 years ago, and how long did it take for people to start caring? 10.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we get a decent amount of views, so I'm sure people will watch this. And if one person saves their life by changing what their direction is, or that probably maybe one person listens to this, and then they tell their girlfriend, and then that girlfriend tells her parents, and then it's like a web that just keeps kind of like cruising out, but just by our time and investing, and like trying to harp on this, like how important these things can be, and how it can be like a recommendation to extend your life if you are like us, like you're extremely heavy bodybuilders and stuff like that. Trying to mitigate potential issues could be life saving as well. So
No, we just got to keep echoing it. We just got to keep saying it. This won't be the last time we talk about it, and hopefully more podcasts talk about it and bring light to it. And hopefully, listen, we talked about coaches and some bad practices. I do hope coaches start to get gun shy. I do hope they start to get nervous, because you know what? We need accountability on that. And we need
yeah,
coaches to care a little more. And we need people to stop taking on situations that they're not prepared for, that they're not educated to handle. And basically stay in your lane. Do what it is that you do. And if you can't handle a certain situation, it's not worth the money. It's not worth risking the person's life. Don't overestimate your abilities, and be a good person. It's not always about your reputation.
mm-hmm. So all right, guys. This was the Physically Offensive Podcast. If you need to get a hold of Phil Viz, I'm sure everyone knows who he is, but it's phil.viz on Instagram. Brian, what is it? Brian M. Johnson?
Just Brian Johnson.
That's what it is. Brian Johnson. He's not the guy that, he's not the Liver King. He's also not the one that's doing the biohacking. So, anyways, appreciate it, guys. Later.
Later.